Well, they say there's that thing where who said it? Whenever you look at something, you know what it would feel like to lick.
That's really gross.
Yeah. Hey, how's it going?
You know how it is.
I do actually. I've been waiting for this.
Oh?
I've been taking dance classes.
Why?
Because I thought that maybe it might get them to stop, actually, if we give them a good enough show.
You think that'll work?
I mean, maybe. Let's...
All right,
should I just get it?
Yeah, let's try it.
All right, let me get into costume.
Yeah.
Hey.
Wait, what you up to?
Yeah, nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably for the best.
Yeah, I think so.
This is the highlight of my week.
Whew.
All right, today's note. Attention, read out loud exactly what is written on this note, or be destroyed and replaced. Welcome to Caffeine and Cantrips, the show where we talk about D&D or else. Greetings. Who goes there? 'Tis thee, Byron number 246, and thou art like a hedge pig in both visage and demeanor.
Well, that's okay. And you're Sean.
But let us not dwell on thy unsightly countenance, for we have a topic of utmost importance to discuss. Have you ever had the machinations of a mischievous fairy? Such a skill is not easily attained, and so, today, we are going to discuss the techniques to employ such suspense and the ways to build to climactic finale and breadcrumbs. Of course. So find your seat and worry not. You paid fairly for the whole cushion, but you'll need only the edge. Well, welcome back to Caffeine and Cantrips. And how about that note that we just read?
I don't know who I ticked off. That was really one-sided.
I just read it, so I'm not destroyed.
Wow.
So, anyways, I guess we're talking this week about how to keep your players and the people around the table engaged, right? How to keep them coming back for more.
That's right. Yeah. Suspense, building to heights of tension and want for the next kind of session or next moment. All of these kinds of things are building reasons for people to want more from you DMs or storytellers or other people at the table, right? And so, yeah, I think it is really what gets you creeping towards the edge of your seat, right? Clinging on. Like next episode and next episode.
Yes. And what keeps it wanting more? Or when you finish that campaign, you're like, man, I cannot wait until next week or next session so I can find out what happens, or so we can keep going and get more of this. It's that kind of feeling. I think that's what we're talking about, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, I think really the biggest and best way to start, like keeping it going and keep that suspense building and keep that momentum so you can find out what happens next, is throwing out a like.
Oh, not just a like.
No.
But also
a suspense. Yes, suspenseful subscription. Yes, so that you can keep on track of us. We can keep track of you. Hit the bell, hit the follow, so that we can keep piping into your ear holes.
If you don't, we are going to regret it.
Oh, yes. We're going to be sad.
So sad. Or not existing anymore.
Or else.
That's the fun part about it.
It is super fun. Right? It is super fun.
But all right, let's get into it.
Oh wow. You look like you've got something to say.
Well, I think so.
Okay.
I think so. So let's talk about that feeling, right? Like that. What is it exactly that gets us to want more of something, of anything, right? Like they say on Netflix, the research shows that the average user will binge watch about 2 to 6 episodes in one sitting.
Oh, okay.
right? At a time. What keeps a person wanting to keep watching the next show and the next show and the next show, even though it's like you're like, oh, I'm just gonna sit down for an episode,
Mm-hmm.
and then like 4 hours later, you're just like, oh man, it's 2 a.m. and I'm tired, right? Because you've binge watched so many, right?
Well, I found out that Cynthia got back together with Brad, and that's what counts.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. You were hoping the whole time, are they gonna get together, right? Or is Jimmy gonna come in and wreck everything, right?
Jimmy,
Come on, Jimmy. And then, that's not even talking about Chauncey. But it's that obsession, right? It's that elixir of obsession. What is that? It is a particular sort of admixture of certain chemicals in your brain.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And
so we're going very biological with this right now.
It
Okay.
is. And that's because it's an actual feeling, that desire and that need for more. It's produced by chemicals in your brain. And the writers of these shows, like writers of novels, they know this, right? So there are typically, there are 4 chemicals / hormones in your body. The first
that have to do with this. There's more than 4.
Yeah, that have to do with this feeling, right?
Specifically,
of this, what we call the elixir of obsession.
Oh,
right? And you can create this at your table, whether you're a DM or a player. It doesn't matter. Or a PC. You all do this, right? So what you have to do is invoke in the people who are experiencing your story or your character or your campaign, dopamine,
okay,
oxytocin,
okay,
endorphins, and cortisol.
That doesn't sound like you can just lace the chips on the table with this stuff.
Oh, maybe. I'm not sure about the science on that.
If you want to give it to your players,
but I feel like if you could do it economically,
yes,
they would be doing that already. And the next friggin' Doritos chips will be the bomb. 10 bags later, I can't get enough, right?
If we see that come out, Doritos, we're coming after you.
But the good thing about this is that these chemicals are free. They're naturally occurring in our bodies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah? Right. But let's talk about sort of how we sort of induce these chemicals in our body and what these chemicals actually do in our body.
Okay.
So the first one I want to talk about is dopamine. We all, I think, are familiar with what dopamine is. It's that feeling that we get when you're like that runner's high, or that high feeling you get. It's like a euphoric kind of feeling, and you get that dopamine hit for doing certain activities, right? It's the same sort of feeling you get from winning a game or watching some like your home sports team win a game.
Well, it's also the same feeling that you get when you flick to the next TikTok or short on YouTube or any of these things where you get your next kind of hit of new exciting information.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because that feeling of dopamine, that rush of that high, is, for lack of a better word, addicting.
Oh, it's super addicting.
Right? And anything, like your body doesn't sort of discriminate between the different kinds of pleasures. Like it doesn't care if you did something for real and you get that dopamine hit, or you've watched something fake that looks impressive, that you're right?
Okay,
and you still get that dopamine hit. And the more you get that hit of dopamine, the more the body wants more of it.
Okay.
Right? So the idea is that if you induce this feeling of dopamine, or this your players and your DM at your table, if you can add things into the story, into the events of your campaign to get that dopamine high generated in the brains of other people at your table, they will enjoy it more and they'll want more of that afterwards. But the trick is,
trick is addiction.
I mean, it's related to addiction, but I mean, there might be some people get addicted to D&D. I get it. It's awesome.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
But what's the specific trigger, right, for dopamine? Specifically, it's in terms of D&D at least, it's a story with that piques interest with a hook.
Interesting.
Right?
So it's not just ringing a bell every time you hand out XP.
No. Or a twist. That's Pavlov. I get XP and I just start drooling. I don't know why.
Every time the doorbell goes, I just get super excited.
But
Level up.
You're on the right track when you talk about handing out XP, right?
Oh, okay.
So a story with a hook or a twist, right? And you can then add, maybe start things off with like an interesting question. You can add suspenseful statements in there, suspenseful events, cliffhangers, plot twists. These things are the setup of the dopamine trigger. It sets this expectation for something. And the trick is to release that dopamine is the reward afterwards.
Okay.
So right, you're like, oh, here's the question, and the reward is the answer. Here's the twist, and then the resolution of that twist is the dopamine hit, right? Or the cliffhanger, and then finding out what happens. That's a dopamine hit. It's the reward center.
Interesting.
Right? And the brain really likes that feeling of getting rewarded. Right? So the more it happens, the more you'll want it. So the trick is to set up the desire for something, then reward it. Desire and reward it. And the more you do that, the more the people at your table will want that.
So this is why players ask to level up at the end of every session. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Or loot. That's a dopamine hit. Or maybe someone's been wooing that NPC for a while, and they finally say yes on that date.
Right.
Or whatever. Right?
Interesting.
Or they've been working on that case, and now that's finally they have a breakthrough. And when you're watching this on TV, that's also a dopamine hit. And because your body can't tell the difference, it's like, yes, okay, pleasure. It's pleasure. I like it. And I want more of it.
Interesting. Yeah, we've talked before about how the suspension of disbelief kind of transcends you doing it and you being there versus you just consuming media. Yep. And then assuming that you were there in some manner. Right. And enjoying that kind of personage. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, so that's dopamine. Right? That's the major one, actually. But like I said, we talked about the other ones, so like oxytocin, endorphins, and cortisol. Let's move on to...
Sure, yeah.
Because it's a mix of all this. Like dopamine's good, but you can make it even better. Right?
Okay. This is your gateway drug.
It really is. But it's not actually something you eat. It's something you do, that you give to people. Right? And so anyways, the next one is... The first one's free.
The first taste is always free.
Oxytocin.
Okay.
And what it is, it's triggered...
Not to be confused with Oxycontin.
Very different.
Very different.
Yes, naturally occurring in the body.
Yes.
Oxytocin is triggered by empathy.
Oh.
Yeah. It's the feeling that mothers get when they see their babies. Or a new father, like when they see their kids. Or like when there's a very empathic sort of moment.
Okay.
It triggers oxytocin to be produced in your brain.
Oh.
Right? Yeah.
An interesting... Okay.
Right. And how do you trigger that? It's by telling vulnerable stories. Right? Stories that tug at the heartstrings.
Okay.
Right? And it's basically things that happen to make us feel human.
So making my PCs cry is good.
Right? Cry because of something that happened. Like, that's so sad. Or that's so heartwarming. Something that tugs at the heartstrings.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
That's oxytocin.
All right.
Right? Again, it's another kind of high that we have.
Yes.
Like emotional sort of high. The next is endorphins.
The workout feel good.
Yep. Makes you feel good.
Yes.
Right? Typically, it's makes you feel happy.
Yes.
An easy way to do that in D&D is by being lighthearted, making jokes, making funny things happen, anything that lightens the mood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because normally endorphins are associated with exercise.
Yeah, that's an easy way of doing it.
Right.
Because if you're angry, you can exercise, and then the endorphins come out, and
you feel better.
I just crushed my microphone. I need some endorphins to make me feel better. Thank you. All right, but like when we make jokes on the podcast, it raises the people's watching endorphin.
Oh, you're welcome.
Right? I'm gonna see. My attempt is to produce this elixir of obsession in you guys out there. Right? But yeah, anything like has to do with humor or like light embarrassment, happy moments, pleasant surprise, those sorts of events and things happening produce these endorphins in our brain.
Okay.
Right? And the last one I want to talk about is cortisol. And this is the stress hormone.
Mm-hmm.
And let's take this one a little bit more gentle.
Oh, okay.
Right? I would say be careful with it because too much of it will make your players too stressed and they're going to be defensive and back off to whatever's happening. So what this is, it's triggered by danger, the sense of danger and intensity. So that's built into D&D already, right? In the battles.
Interesting. Okay.
Right,
okay.
but you can make it lighter, like you can make it more intense, you can make it less intense, more dangerous, less dangerous, right? Like like fighting like level 5 people fighting like a party of 5 level 5s fighting a 1 goblin, not so dangerous. Potentially. Like right?
Correct.
But fighting 50 goblins, a lot more dangerous, right? So that produces cortisol in our brain.
Okay.
Right? And that's another way of sort of adding that sort of that chemical bond in our brains to make us obsessed over something, but not too much, like I said, because you can get exhausted with too much cortisol.
So that's a burnout one?
It can be, yeah.
Okay.
Other ones you can't burn out on it.
Oh.
Not really.
Also good to know.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the only one that really you have to be careful about.
Okay.
And balance it out. And really, and to successfully create the elixir of obsession, you have to balance all of these 4 cocktails in the brain, right?
So of the 4, for a quick recap to make sure that I was paying attention here,
yes.
Right? We've got rewards, empathy. Oh my God, what was the third one that you said?
Humor, lightheartedness,
happiness, and then stress.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And you have to balance it out. Like you have to, like I said, pay attention to the people on your table. If maybe it's too much stress, you can add some endorphins, lightheartedness to balance that out, whatever, right? But if you have all of these in your stories, whether it's in your campaign stories or in your character interactions that you have as a PC with other NPCs or other players, because it doesn't matter if you're interacting with the DM or the other players. You don't have to be interacting with another player to give them these endorphins and these chemicals. They can watch you do this with another character, NPC or otherwise, and they'll still experience that by watching.
As if they were watching a TV show.
Correct.
Or another sort of some media. Okay.
And the best TV shows, the best books, all do this to you. They put that's that ride that they take you on.
Okay.
Right? And it's super addictive. And as humans, we want more of it. Yeah. And I'll leave that why we're gonna be like why we're chopping at the bit for more of it for later in this talk, I think.
Faux pas, because you like to correct me. It is champing, good sir.
Champing
at the bit, not chomping.
If I was a horse, I'd be chomping at that bit.
You'd be a terrible horse.
Probably.
Thy countenance aside. Okay. So that's.
What do you think of that?
That's okay. So that was a lot of kind of heavy, fast-paced stuff.
Like info just flying at you. I know.
Yeah. Okay. So I do agree. Like now that we know what all that means, right? The easier concept when we zoom out to it to just go like, all right, rewards. Yes.
It's a setup. Rewards. It's a setup.
Then the reward. To a reward.
Yes.
Right. So the reward has to be worth it.
Correct.
Right.
Or the setup has to be worth the reward.
Yeah. So great shout out back towards our story wheel, right? You have to have a sacrifice, have that tension, have that like that conflict in order to get that thing that you want, that high reward.
Right. Dan Harmon, he knows about this stuff. Right. And his wheel naturally is formed to have all this stuff in its form, right?
Yeah. No,
that's why it's so compelling.
It definitely is the skeleton of it.
Yep.
If we're talking about biology. That's super interesting. I'm just trying to process kind of all of that stuff. Because I think we do this without thinking about doing it. But when you think about the elements broken away and in an individual list to then do that kind of self-analysis and think about, are we doing enough? Are we doing too much in case of the cortisone?
Cortisone. Yep.
Cortisol. Yeah, cortisone's the injectable into your lip.
Yeah, there's so many
cortisol. See, bad cortisol job, right? Your facelift stuff. That's the one you got to be careful with. Yeah, so the
don't do that to your players.
No. Don't give your players drugs, except for caffeine and cantrips. So I like that when you break them out separately, these are the things that we already do. But if we focus on breaking them out into those 4 easy things to remember, somewhat easy, I guess. Easy. It's something that we can focus on.
Right, and if you notice that your players you're losing their attention.
Yeah.
Drop one of these things. Like think about what has been going on lately, and maybe I can add another one of these hormones into there without the changings up. Or think about all the last 4 sessions or 20 hours has been mostly cortisol. It's just fighting. Even in a good movie, you have to give breathers to the viewers, or you get exhausted.
Yes.
Right. So by knowing these 4 aspects of obsession and experience that people have, you can better sort of pace your campaign, I think.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Have a little check marks on your sheet, your notes.
Right. Just think about it, right?
Give them this, give them that, give them this, give them that.
The players just finish this kind of sort of arc. What's the next arc going to be? Maybe. Right. If it was mostly one type, maybe give them a break and do something else.
Right, like jumping jacks.
Yeah.
Fitness. Get those endorphins rolling the easy way. No, that's really interesting. I think, like from a biological sense, to break out into, I keep saying that, to break it down into a smaller, more manageable bite-sized piece. Right. Bringing it down into those 4 individual aspects is super important. And that's a really great place. It was a big chunk, but that's a great place to start the conversation. In identifying, we identified, what does this look like? What does that look like? These are the ingredients for that elixir, right? And so, you've got to start there and start with something good.
Okay.
I think, right? Because what you've talked about is just kind of the high-end concepts, right? Yes. What you need from that, in addition, is a quality source of that, right? If you've got like you said, you need the trigger to set up the dopamine before the reward. If your trigger isn't recognizable as a trigger, right? The speed bump to the reward is just a little, beat down kind of thing, and it's not a big bump or a recognizable one, then it might not trigger that reaction. Right.
It has to be recognized and felt as a build up.
Yes.
Right.
So you brought your friend over, you're watching your favorite TV show, anime, movie, whatever. It's coming up to your favorite part. You look over and they're on their phone, right? And you're like,
yeah.
You're not experiencing it like I want you to experience it, right? Like you gotta such a letdown. Oof.
Friends off.
Ouch. But no, you have to start with something good there, right? You have to have a good setup for these things to actually happen, I think.
Okay. Can you give me an example of that, maybe?
Well, like I just said, you need your dopamine trigger to be recognizable. Right? And then you get the reward and the hit.
Right. I guess you have to know you know your partner or the people at your table in order to know what's important to them.
Yeah.
Or know what they'll recognize as
definitely going to be important. And I think one of the things that, now that I'm digesting what you said, that I will break out to in a second, is more of the reasons to how to make those things happen the right way.
Okay. The wrong way.
The wrong way. You're supposed to love this.
There's a bomb under your seat. And if you aren't successful with this roll,
it's deactivated by your tears. So you need to start with, initially at least, that player engagement, right? You've got to set up what's going on. You got to have the buy-in from the people there. So they have to be paying attention. They have to be with the story and have that want of being compelled as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you need to want to be there to play D&D in the first place, or whatever TTRPG you're playing, but you need to want to be there. And from that, we've talked about this a little bit before, but I think it's a great way to break into it, is like you said, the people around you, you need to kind of like look and see what they're responding to.
Yep.
Right. And from that, one of the concepts that I've already brought out is everything and nothing. Right. So everything is ready to go and ready to be experienced because your players are going to tell you what they're wanting to investigate. So you know where to hide those dopamine triggers, those empathy bonds, right? Those senses of stress. You know which boxes to hide those ones behind because your players are going to tell you the path that they want to move forward through. And once again, that's kind of speaking more from a DM's perspective.
Right.
Sure, when you're trying to tell a story for multiple people. But those things that they're interested in will automatically have more value to the players. They're going to be more interested. They're going to give you that feedback as you're playing through this that they want to interact with X more than Y.
Right.
Right. And so when I say you got to start with something good, right, you have to start with something that has an inherent value or interest to the players.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, okay.
And then continue that on. Sorry, it took a long way to get there. But, you know, that's where your starting point kind of needs to be, is in that give and take of being aware, being present, being there with the person, and actually having that dialogue, right? More than just speaking, you need to listen as well.
Right, and find out what matters to them.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
And yes, long way around. And what they're not interested can still be super awesome, right? Can still be super creative and super interesting.
Because perhaps you can pique their interest in something that they didn't think they were interested in before.
Right. Or do a tie back, right? Create a clue that makes them have to backtrack and go check out the other stuff as well. And then they can experience that and realize that there is more than kind of keeping the blinders on and just storming ahead.
Right.
Yeah. So when we go with that, everything is everything. Yes, DMs, do your prep, get ready, but also get ready to really explore those things that your players want to explore as well.
Right.
Have enough track ahead of them that you can go forward with that stuff and keep them, like you said, we're binging a Netflix show.
Right.
Not 4 hours, 2 to
6 episodes.
2 to 6 episodes. That's a lot.
It's a lot.
Right. And so, but that's because a person is seeking more of that series, of that documentary.
That's 2 to like 12 hours, depending on how long the episodes are.
Well, I mean, 2 to 6 episodes of The Lord of the Rings. Right. You are there for all weekend, my guy.
I guess. Yeah. It wouldn't be episodes, it'd be movies. Episode 1 of Lord of the Rings.
What happens to Gandalf next?
It's like Star Wars. They're not movies. They're just episodes.
A little bit. We don't want to go there. But yeah, no. So I really think that, you know, recapping that idea and understanding that giving people what they're asking for is a great way of feeding into that elixir of obsession. That's how you can use your prep time to get ahead of them so that you're always ready to check off one of those 4 boxes. Right.
Yeah, the players will let you know what's important to them.
Oh, they absolutely do.
Yeah, and it's guaranteed that if you dangle what they want in front of them for a while, they'll chase it, and then you can give it to them, and then they'll be happy. Like it's as simple as that, right? It's the dopamine. It's funny. Humans are more like animals than we think.
Yes.
Right. And you can, not only as a DM, you can do that as a player. Because you know, it's funny, as a player, it's a little bit different, I find. Because not every player, but most players have a story that is important to their character, to that player.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? And they want to share that. They want to experience that. So you can, when you interact with those players, when you know what's important to that character or that player, you can dangle sort of what is important to them in front of their character, and then you make them work to experience that. Right? And then when you finally let them talk about that thing or have that event happen that shows how cool the character is, then it's funny, then they'll get that hit of dopamine and be like, oh wow, I want to play with this player some more.
Yes. And in your own spontaneous way, you fell right into my trap, because the next thing that I wanted to talk about.
The trap card. Kaiba, no.
The key behind that on the player's side is you need to have a passionate presentation. You need to evoke in the other person. So this is going to speak to the oxy side of things.
Okay.
Right? Because I'm going to show you. I'm going to induce empathy in you by showing you the emotions that I want you to reciprocate, to mirror, to resonate with, right? So this is a sad moment. So I am going to evoke sadness. I'm going to become a little bit more quiet, maybe a little bit more small at the table, right? I'm going to do things that change my demeanor to show you that I am becoming vulnerable, that I am opening up in this moment, right? And I'm going to commit to that RP or to that moment so that you have more to work with, but also it's easier for you to recognize the trigger. Right?
Yeah, man, you say it just like that, but it's actually really hard.
It's committing.
It is committing, and it's in some ways, I think you yourself as the player will feel vulnerable when you're role playing a vulnerable character in a vulnerable moment, and no one likes to feel vulnerable, right? But to do it in the game, it adds so much to it.
Well, as you're about to go into the moment, or you're going through the moment, maybe a question that should float around in the back of your mind is, can I do more? Right? Like I'm doing something. Can I do more? Like in this moment, can I make this moment?
Can I cry some more?
Cry some more. Wow. Can I appear sadder? Can I appear more angry? Can I appear more confident? Can I wear that mask a little better than I wore it yesterday, type thing, right? Especially when we're going into areas that we're not comfortable with or are uncomfortable for us as players. Not talking about X cards or veils at this point, but still, yes. When we're going into these things that we're exploring in a safe space around people that are there to support us, can I do more? Can I try and push the boundaries of my ability to act, to role play, to become this person, individual creature, whatever it is that you're playing at the table? Oozes are now out there. Can you glorp better?
They are out there.
They are out there now. Yes. Can you do that?
Well, can I glorp with some humanity?
Oh.
Right?
Yeah.
Like glorp sadly. Glorp. Glorp.
Yeah.
But, right? It's funny. And I think if you are if you've done it right, you'll know when after that scene is done, people go like,
oh, yes.
Right? That feeling. You're like, okay, that was something. Right? And that's the chemicals in your brain going.
And you have to know that what you're doing is worth sharing.
Yeah.
Right. We've talked about this before. You are enough. You are good at what you are doing. You can be better. And that's why you're here listening and wanting to be part of this conversation. Hopefully get in the comments. But, like.
That's how you can get better. Get in the comments right now.
That's part of it, is that what you're doing is worth sharing. The people at the table want to hear more of the story that you are telling.
Yeah.
Right. So know that it's worth it, and know that they want to buy in, right? They already bought the ticket. They're sitting in the seat next to you. Yeah. They want more. So don't be afraid. Like don't let
be
the
afraid.
presence.
It's okay to be afraid because you're going to be afraid.
Well,
be brave.
Yeah, because you're being
be brave.
It's the only time you can be brave.
It's true. It's when you're scared.
Yeah. So go through that, and I think
Caffeine Cantrips, dropping wisdom bombs,
life bombs incoming. Get down. Get down. Yeah. And to further that point, it's going to be more healthy for you in the long run when you push your boundaries and explore and find and grow and do these things. So, it's a lot. I think it's a lot like meal prep for those people that do it. There's a time that you are prepping for the future, right? So there should be a time that you are prepping for your campaign, your one shot, your next session or whatever. And think about either breaking it down into bite-sized pieces or nice, tasty morsels that you do every week.
Right.
Or, get ahead of it so that you know and schedule it into your time where you can think about these things, experience these things, ask yourself, can I do more? Go back if you record or, videotape your sessions. I audio record mine specifically because sometimes I miss notes, but also sometimes there's key moments that I want to go back and develop. I want to cultivate those seeds because you don't necessarily catch them all immediately.
Yeah.
Right?
They're so easy to miss when everything's flying by you in the moment, right?
Oh, and so much does. And that's why it's difficult sometimes to focus and lean in and be there for the person that you're RPing
Felix?
with.
Who's Felix?
Who is Felix? Dun, dun, dun. Get in there and also get out of yourself and say, can I do more? Can I instigate more RP, better RP, right? And all of these things. Where else can we go? Yeah, it's a huge chunk to bite off, but the more we practice these skills, the better at it we get, right?
Yep.
And we are in the gym of RP when we're sitting at the table, right? Lift those sad weights, swing those rage bells, right? Like, get out there and do it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's true though. It's really important to use quality ingredients.
Oh.
Right? When you do this.
Meal prep reference.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I'm gonna go out and say this. We've said it before in previous episodes.
And we're gonna say it
and
again.
I referenced it earlier that to your brain, everything is real.
Well, for all of us that love Gundam and Evangelion and whatnot, your brain is just your mech pilot. Right? You are the suit, and your brain is sitting in its armored little cockpit, and
it's flesh robot.
Yeah, like a super advanced king,
right? But so the brain can't tell, or it treats real events the same as fake events.
Yeah, because it comes through the same sensors.
The same part of your brain fires up. But when you watch a show about Jedi, and when you are an actual Jedi in real life, or even when you dream about being a Jedi, the brain's like, oh, that's real, right? Little kids actually can't tell the difference between what they imagine and what they see in real life. It's really dangerous to scare kids and pretend to be monsters because for them, it's real.
Oh.
Right? And we never grow out of that, actually.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's why they're terrified of things, right? Because to them it's real. The monster under the bed is real, right? The orcs that we're fighting in the campaign are real to our brain, right? And so because we treat things that are fake as real, we can get actually attached to fake events and fake places and fake people, like NPCs or characters, right? And we start caring about sort of what happens to them and this place that doesn't exist, but we're like, it's going to be destroyed unless this happens, right? And it's funny, there's one key thing that makes people care about fake things.
Oh.
Right? Like when you're watching a show.
Okay.
Right? Or playing a video game. Right? And this is another way of...
One thing.
One key thing.
Okay.
There's multiple others, but the main thing that'll keep your players coming back and thinking about your campaign is identification. So when you identify with a character.
Ah, okay.
Right?
I was like, my driver's license?
My passport?
Papers, please.
Papers, please. Identification. So if you identify with a certain character, you bond with that character. So then you care about them. So if you're a DM and you can have an NPC that players can identify with, then people, the players, not the characters, the players will care about them. Because the players, the real life people are identifying with your NPC, not the characters that they play.
Right. That would be creepy if they did.
Right? So creepy.
It got away from me.
And how do we identify? There's several ways.
Right.
So it's basically characters that we see ourselves in.
Okay.
Right? Like, what's a good show that does that? Modern Family.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
They've got the gay couple.
Yeah.
They've got the older man who's married, the younger lady.
Yeah, the quote unquote trophy wife type
thing.
I didn't actually want it. I know what you're talking about.
They've got lots of different types of people.
Yes.
That people can identify with. So when you watch the show, lots of different people can identify with the show because there's a character that they identify with. So
okay.
they bond with that,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they care about that show now. They want to know what happens because they see themselves in that character,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So in terms of D&D, it's creating a character. If you're a PC,
Mm-hmm.
having that character be built in a way that's relatable and that other players or the DM can identify with as people in real life. NPCs should be built the same way so people can bond with those. And then when things happen to those NPCs, the players themselves feel emotions. Not they don't just pretend, they don't just make their characters feel sad
Right.
or do the things that make them look sad.
Yes.
They feel sad themselves. So then they channel that through the character, right?
My next PC is going to be called Sean.
Right? I'm going to do horrible things to him.
Identify.
Right? But there's other ways of making allowing people to identify with your campaign. One is wishful identification. So things that people wish for. So it could be like immersion in a world that they wish they lived in. D&D is already like that.
Yes. Yes.
Right? It's the fantasy world with elves and orcs and ogres and halflings and whatever that you can go in and embody.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But you could, how you build your campaign can also have an element of that wish fulfillment, that identification, sort of things that I would like to live in.
Absolutely, it is. When you're doing world building, you're definitely maybe you're not creating a world that you want to live in, but you're definitely creating something that you're interested in and enjoy.
Right. But again, know your players and build it so that something that they want to immerse themselves in as people.
Right.
Right. Next is identifying with sort of the desire for power, prestige, and success.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And if you can have that in the game, you want more of that. Mm-hmm. Pleasure, right? Because it fires off all that dopamine and all that.
Well, we talked about making core aspects of characters, right, driven by emotional needs, physical needs, monetary needs, right? So that ties in perfectly with that, right? Those are easy things that people can empathize with and recognize because we all want to be a little bit more powerful, a little bit richer, a little bit more famous.
Right. I mean, and again, that's why D&D and TTRPGs in general are really good at because it's built into the system. I get experience, I level up. I gain power, I gain riches and prestige, or like sort of built in into the system. But if you know this, you can do that yourself as a world builder, as a DM, as a storyteller, even as a player storyteller. Right? So it's that connection that your real life people at the table feel with the characters in the game that builds that bond with your campaign, and then so they want more of that when they leave. Right? So that's I think it's a more. I mean, it works into the whole Elixir of Obsession. It fires off all those chemicals.
Yes,
but this is a more sort of pragmatic way of going about it.
Oh, okay.
Like how do I have the right stuff? Well, this is how. Right, by knowing the players and helping them to building and putting things in the campaign that people can identify with.
Right.
And want and bond with. Yeah.
Bonding. You're lucky out there, those in the audio land. So no, that is yet another kind of great breakdown. And I like this one a little bit more, right? Because
you didn't like my other one?
I like this one more. Does not mean that I did not like the previous. But my more liking on this one is really kind of based in, like you said, it's more of a pragmatic view. We talked about, or you talked about the building blocks, right? And now we're getting around to the application side of it, right? We're not just talking about these data points, right? We're starting to bring it to the table and make it kind of work. Yeah. No, that really is important. I think I was just about to talk about identifying stuff, but now I don't have to because that's already kind of been tackled. But Sean the PC coming to a theater near you is definitely going to happen.
I'll pay to watch that movie.
That's good. That's good. That's an excellent. It's an excellent kind of way to really start bringing this into a place where you can actively make change and how you can adjust things. Once again, I mean, talking from the DM perspective, right? To make sure that your players can see themselves in the world, right? Identification and seeing yourself in media is so big now, right? And the diversification of stars and media is in there as well, or stars and celebrities as well, right? Just to make sure that we do show that there's more than just the human fighter out there, right? Or a white bread version of it, however you want to say it. That's really interesting.
It's interesting, right? Because if you care about an NPC who lives in a town, then you care about the NPC, then you also care about the town.
Yes.
Right? And you can use them as sort of tools or bludgeons. I was going to say.
Yeah, I was going to say, you came down hard with that.
To trigger those dopamine things. Oh, you save the town? And because I care about the town, the dopamine trigger pops off because I saved it. Right? Whereas if it's just another town, whatever, give me my loot. I'm off to the next town. Right? If you have a heartwarming moment with that NPC that you identify with, then it's actually heartwarming as opposed to, all right, whatever, your son's back. Give me my money. I'm going to go to the next quest. Right?
This brings new light.
Right. And if they're in trouble and they're in danger, that's cortisol.
Yeah.
Right?
No, but this also brings new light to the things that we talked about before a long time ago in our Why We Love D&D talk, right? Like the breakdown of how these separate tasks were put into that in the subtext is really interesting. Yeah, it's really interesting. A great time to go back and kind of self-reflect.
You know what would be a mean trick, though?
A mean trick. Is this one of those?
A difficult trick. A tricky trick.
A tricky trick.
Yeah, it would be somehow to get our viewers to identify with the like and the subscribe button.
You like to be liked.
Right? So I think you guys need to know that the lives of Byron and Sean right here are in great danger.
They are.
And there's only two things that can save us. It's when you push the like and subscribe button and the notification bell as a bonus. Right?
We're saved.
Please do that. Yay. At least one of you liked and subscribed. I'm still here.
Well, yeah, I guess that counts.
Yeah. There you go.
Feels good.
Feels good to not be exploded into a bloody mist.
Dopamine hit right there. Feeling good.
It's a real heartwarming moment for me. So my oxytocin.
Well, I'm glad you...
Oxymoron?
No.
is going?
You got half of that word right. Yeah. No, it's really interesting that you talked about the elixir. Yeah. Just slicing through this. I think it's really fun and exciting that you talked about the elixir of obsession as a thing earlier. And all like the good stuff.
Right.
Right. Because most of the time, I think one of the core and key aspects of... Why are you smiling?
No, go ahead.
Why?
No, I'm because I'm stupid. Keep going.
All right. One of the key things I think in the way of creating players wanting more is to go the opposite way. And you start with emotional damage. And I know you want to say it. I'm not going to, but yes.
You want me to say it?
If you,
because it's safe for me to say it? Emotional damage.
I love it. Feels good. And I think a great way.
I like how you made me say that.
I did not make you.
You didn't.
No,
it was done by my own free will.
But I set up the trigger.
Right?
Dopamine.
Right? And that was the reward.
Yeah. And now we get to the way that I'd like to break it down. In an easy way, not really, to remember it. Emotional damage is bad pain.
Bad pain.
Bad pain. And what is that?
Not that good pain.
Well, it is good. It actually feels real
good. Okay.
But breaking it down, bad. I break down this acronym. Both of these are acronyms.
Oh, okay.
When we're trying to create bad and pain.
Okay. Oh, they're not.
Bad is going to stand for the backstory, allies, and death.
Okay.
These are three things. I've talked a lot about death in TTRPGs previously. But starting at the beginning, these are great ways for DMs, for players to look at the people around the table and the characters around the table. And like in the backstory, see where we can find those identifying hooks and those similarities, right? What about them is interesting to my character, right? How can I actively engage in their backstory and share the parallel that I have in my backstory with them? Or if it's an NPC, same thing. How can I show off a mirable trait or talent that will then spur forward more good kind of things that they're going to want to experience and have, right? Get those hits of the good feelings. Get those wants to binge more of that relationship or more of that cool town you build or more of that temple, monument, dungeon, whatever it is, right? Go deep into the backstory and see where you can expand it. And as a player, not as a PC, here's a little bit of a tricky one, but as a player, go back over your backstory and write a separate set of notes of secrets your PC does not know.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Right? So there's the known history and there's the unknown history. And that is just ready to become a sandwich that you hand your DM to fill in everything in between of all the stuff that you don't even know as the player on top of that, right? But there's things that your PC knows. There's things that your PC doesn't know.
Interesting.
But you as a player, if your DM allows you the freedom, can input this into the canon of the world, right? And that then will create a way that you want to explore. Your PC wants to explore. And even though the player might know a little bit more, they don't know everything, right? The DM, quote unquote, knows everything about what's going on here, but it gives them way more ways to create hooks, to create story that will create that tension and that want to explore forward.
It's interesting because that's a great pre-setup, like in the character for that reward, that suspense and reward, because it's already there.
Oh, it's at the beginning, right? And it can show up at any point. There's that dangling carrot or hanging fruit, right? That's always there. It's ever present. And you're the one that put it up there to start off with, right? So I think that you can do some of the legwork.
That's really cool.
Right? To get ahead of these things. And then, of course, you already kind of talked about this a little bit, but the allies that the character creates, right? Have them be able to identify or find similarities or find things. Have that romantic interest. Have that business interest. How many of you PCs out there haven't started your own business? Get on it. Money is awesome. You know, get into those things where we create those networks and the world becomes more real. We're talking about immersion.
Yeah.
One of the ways that we do that is we make it seem more real. We get up to here in the world and then everything looks real.
Right.
So
like, what's that one business that you really care about? Is it your favorite bar? Is it that orphanage? Right? Or is it that guild or that
Is it your favorite orphanage bar?
Oof.
Hey, 9 years old is the age of majority in some countries. In the fantasy land. Yeah, in fantasy. And plus mead was like super weak.
Oh, jeez.
It was just honey water. But
butterbeer.
Yeah, Mr. Potter. Going into those things. So when we're talking about immersion, yes, dig into their allies, right? Make the world that they're choosing to expand into something that seed can grow roots in, right? And interestingly enough, I think death is also another place that we can create good RP. I've mentioned it before. When my players are making death saves, I ask for memories from the past.
Right.
Or it might be a way as their soul is moving from one point to the other, a great way to interject some divine RP.
Right.
Or some longing, or, you know, the warlock patron comes off. Or maybe the player was talking about, maybe I want some warlock in my future.
Right.
Great point to start introducing those kinds of thoughts and feelings and create that nice little tidbit that they can see quite clearly.
Right.
That when they come back, it now spurs them forward once again into great choices and into great RP that's ahead of them.
Yeah.
And that's, yes, it's bad, the acronym BAD, but it's good. But it's good. Yeah, and all three of those things can relate back to emotional damage, right? These are you don't have to say it again. These are the things that are going to create empathy very quickly because they're the primary, without death, but they're the primary things where the character is most vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Hit him in the backstory, right? Super easy. You have live parents, right? Like these are things that we can play with. But the fun part about it is in the world, this is wholly of their creation.
Yeah.
Right? And so you know that they have to identify with it because it's 100% their fault.
Right.
Right. This is a consequence, a good consequence of the creative process of getting into these things. So yes, I think the first acronym of backstory, allies, and death are three great ways.
Exploit those.
Exploit them in a good way, right? To use them efficiently. It's always time for RP, he said with quotations. These are ways that we can get in there. Now, one thing that I would warn you about is that some people are very sensitive about these things as well.
Yeah.
We don't like to lose, right?
Right.
How do you win D&D? Nobody officially knows. How do you lose D&D? Well, you get hurt and you don't like what's going on.
Right.
Right. So
you don't want to play anymore. And everyone loses.
And some of these things can be ways that people get hurt.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
PCs die, people get hurt.
Yeah.
So do know
hopefully
how
not
far
the other way around.
Yeah. Yeah, not the other way around.
No.
So do have those conversations, right? Those session zero things, those re-ups on that. Make sure that everyone is comfortable with where you're going and what's happening. And, at the beginning, blurt it out. Hey, how attached are you to the individuals in your backstory? Right. Oh, no, I don't want to deal with the loss of my parents. Okay. I will take that and I will accept that. And your parents are safe. It's not to say that I can't threaten them.
Right.
But your parents are safe, right? I'm not going to do the low blow. I'm not going to do the dirty trick, right? And exploit you, the player.
Yeah.
In this moment, right?
Exploiting the character, fine. Exploit the player, no.
No, right? The player's fun is paramount. So yeah, that the pro is RP. The con is that it could be too heavy of RP if you're not careful in some of the places that you tread. But it is it's a great orchard to grow your fruits.
Yeah.
Is in that. And the other half of what?
No, just growing fruits makes me think of sowing seeds, and that's a different metaphor.
There you go.
Cut this out. That's uncalled for.
The other half of this is pain.
They're not going to cut it out.
They're not going to cut it out. Well, I just tried to work through it. So, gods of snip snip, you have the power now.
I'm not destroyed yet. So
the other half is pain. So
dark.
This is it's emotional damage is my theme.
Okay.
So you kind of talked a little bit about this before, but in the identification umbrella, pain really fits underneath this as personalization, anticipation, involvement, and most importantly, narration.
Okay.
So to break those down once again, you need to identify in what's going on. You have to be able to personalize what's in front of you.
Yeah.
The things have to speak to you in a way that you want to engage with them, or they have to show you how you can interact with them, right?
Okay.
In order for that to. So personalize the story, DM and players, right? Get out there and make sure that the story is something that can answer the question, maybe, why you want to be an adventurer. Why does this story explain that? Why is this story built purposefully for this character?
Okay.
Right? Do the work on both sides of the screen, the DM and the character, to get in there and make sure that this is a story worth telling. And this is a story that only this character could tell.
Right. Okay.
Right? And then you know that it's worth it once again, right? You know that what you're doing is good and it's valuable, but now you know that it's a unique thing that only could have been created between what's going on at this place at this time. Right? And that's how you really start to own it and want to be immersed in it. Because you know it's unique and it's special. And it's a rare treasure, right? Like it's one in a million, diamond in the rough. And
legendary item, unique equipment. Wow.
Yeah. And leaning straight into it is the anticipation of that.
Yeah.
Right? You should want to want more.
I want to want more.
There's a lot of want in there, lots of desire. But yeah, no, you should be looking for
desire to desire more.
That's too much for exhibit. I'll put some desire in your desire so you can desire while you desire. Get in there and think ahead into these things. And knowing that, yes, the story is unfolding at a certain rate. We go to the sessions or we show up for sessions. We play the game. But what's going to happen next game? What do I want to have happen? What's going to happen? Oh, I could think about it. Oh, let's make plans. We know that this happened and this little like tidbit of the mystery came out. What could that tidbit mean? And what could that possibly have to do in the bigger picture? Right? Play games with it. Think about it. Have fun thought experiments. Go wild and crazy. Some of the best stories are the stories that we never told, but we still laughed about them after the session. We're like, I thought when we pulled that sword out of the stone, it was going to be a this, but actually it wasn't. And then the DM is behind the screen going, damn it, that would have been awesome.
So good.
That would have been so good.
I pulled the sword out and I thought I was going to be king, but it was just a sword. It's just, an iron sword.
Just a sword, yeah. No, it was kind of cursed and it gave me tetanus, actually.
Oh, king. That would have been a great story.
Yeah, you pull a sword out of a stone. That would have been great. Someone should tell that story. Yeah, no, but that's one of the great things, that if you look at these things and you play with it and your mind goes wild, this is all practice. Once again, leading back for what can I do? Can I do more? Right? And having these fun little daydream moments. Even daydream moments from the PC's perspective. Because now they're daydreaming about, what could this mean in this world? And blah, 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 blah. Right? You're blurring the lines. Right? In there. And thinking about it more is going to create more desire to have more or want more on top of it. Right? And then you're getting more. You're getting more away from the table.
Right?
And then when you show back into the table, you're like, and now we get to find out you just set up your own dopamine trick. Boom. Right? Like,
it's like setting up this realm of possibilities within the minds of people at the table. So they can be like, I can explore that while I'm gone. And then what is it? Which one of these 12 that I've thought about? They'd be so cool, any of them. Then when you sit down, you're like, okay, now we get to find out which one it is.
And this is something that you can build with the other people at the table, right? How many of us out there, when we hang out with people that we play D&D with, do we talk about D&D? 100%.
Yeah.
Straight up. If you don't, get in the comments. Tell me. And I roll to disbelieve.
Right. Chauncey.
So when we get in there, everybody except for Chauncey, and we're doing that, then we're doing that anticipation as a group or networked thing, right? And then I can feed off of your excitement. You can feed off of my excitement. Now we're even both more excited. And through the brainstorming, we come up with more possibilities.
Right. Pump each other up.
You pump each other
up.
And that's going to keep you wanting to come back to the table, right?
Yeah.
That's got to be one of the best ways of getting rid of burnout, is just having play, right? It's just not feel burdened to be efficient or effective. Just go on a creative fancy. Right? Get rid of all the rules, get rid of all of the things that are holding you back, and just be creative in whatever medium that is. If that's a conversation with drinks after work, if that's, we're going to meet for lunch, blah, 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 and you do this. I'm going to go for a walk. Do you want to go for a walk? Because we both live in the same neighborhood, because we play okay, cool, great. Let's meet here and let's just do this. And get outside, get some fresh air. All of these things will build your want to get back there. And of course, to the eye, involvement. That's what you're doing when you're talking about, when you're getting active in doing this. You're not just playing D&D by showing up to the table. That's like minimum. That's the minimum requirement of you, is to show up and roll dice. And even some sessions you don't get to roll dice because, it's one of those sessions. Okay.
Yeah.
But involvement is leaning in. Involvement is making sure that you're aware and present. Involvement is making sure that you get enough sleep the night before so that you're going to have energy to be there.
Yeah.
Involvement is showing up on time, right? We know that life gets in the way, right? Yeah, we can all forgive.
Yeah.
And there's always that one person who's always late. I'm kind of one of them, right? Like,
sure are.
Yeah, unless it's work. Work is different. Personal is a mess. But yeah, no, when we get into this, right, these are the things that are going to help train us to get a hold of these triggers and really maximize them because we create the space for them. Right. And you can only do that by being there. Right. And by being involved. Right. And leave it all on the court, right? Like, get out there, get some sweat on your brow, and go have some fun.
Like, don't be the lump.
Yeah.
Go do something.
Hey, nice throwback. Most importantly, all of this is going to hinge, and I think the elixir of obsession is dependent on this, is narration. Giving vivid, accurate depictions of these things. This is where TV has an edge on us because we get to see everything that they want us to see. But there is 100 people behind that camera making sure that that shot is perfect. Yeah. We have to use our vocabulary and stretch that mother out. You tight. Thank you. We need to stretch that out and really create a wider vocabulary. It's something that a lot of people are losing as we kind of go on. Shakespeare invented words because there weren't words accurate enough to depict what he wanted to tell. Right. Not saying that you get to do what Shakespeare did or me, but we do see people creating words and adding them into the common lexicon.
What happens all the time.
Yeah, it happens all the time. And it should happen more, but for this purpose.
Are you saying to use Gen Z slang?
You know what? I would love to, but I might not understand a Gen Z slang game.
Is it a bard? Nah, man. He's a wizard.
A wizard? Huh. No cap. No cap. But we have to, in order to express the best ability. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I'm skirting that one. In order to give everybody else the best ability to enjoy that clarity of vision that we're trying to present to everyone, expanding our lexicon, expanding our ability, going the extra mile in explaining 3, not 2 senses. Right. Yeah. Or 4, not 3 senses. As we're going in, what does it smell like? How often do we talk about smell? Right? These types of things are ways that we can answer the question, can I do more? To create the ability for others to react in the best way. Give them as much information, as much beautiful information as you can, so that they can return the favor. Right? Yeah. And that's going to help you with that immersion. When you can see that image clear in your mind, right? And we don't need to go to J.R.R. Tolkien levels, right? I don't need you to dialogue 3 pages on what the goblin brigand looks like because he's going to die when the fighter hits him. We don't need a half an hour diatribe or monologue about what's going on.
I need to hear about his entire backstory so I can feel bad for his family when the fighter
it's like Shadow of Mordor where he shows up and he gets his own mini monologue in front of the party. And everybody's time stopped because...
Hi, I'm back. My wife loves my new scars.
Yeah, she thinks they're super sexy.
Thanks a lot.
So that's a really interesting thing. And so we need to, and this is why I think narration is the most important, right? Right. So emotional damage is going to be key. Bad pain's the way to get there. Get in there. Personalization, anticipation, involvement, and narrative. And like you said, all of these things are going to be really dependent on the people around you. Right? Read the room, right? And like I say, the writing's on the wall. Well, the writing's in the faces of the... Not in this one. This one's pretty bland. But the writing's on the wall. It's people are going to react to you, right? Yep. Ask for feedback. Ask to see what's going on. Create good consequences at the table because you can really show... as a double-edged sword, that the pen is mightier than the sword, right? Yeah. We have to be careful in some of the things that we're doing in an RP, but evoking imagery and implanting ideas into people's minds is a power that you can attain.
Whoa, Inception.
Yeah, but like Inception version, like alpha 03. Give them all the information. Don't be shy, right?
Yep.
And yes, you will stumble. Yes, you will have to gauge and figure out how much your table wants, because there is too much information sometimes, right?
Yep.
We don't necessarily care 3 sentences of what their hair looks like.
You're right.
Right?
Yep.
But the first time our PCs meet each other, I want to know. I do want to know a nice, clear description of who I'm going to be spending the next months of adventuring with.
Well, I want to know just what he or she looks like. I want to know what they feel like.
Mm-hmm.
How do they move? How do they feel? How do they sound?
Mm-hmm.
Right? All that stuff.
Mm-hmm. How do they smell? Another great evocative way. Mm-hmm. Smell and taste are some of the most potent ways.
I want you to tell me how your
describing.
characters taste like.
Well, they say there's that thing where who said it? Whenever you look at something, you know what it would feel like to lick.
That's really gross.
You're doing it. So you're doing it.
Hey guys, what does this beard feel like to lick? That's cortisol right there.
So that's cortisol right there. For our ASMR people out there.
Stress hormones.
So much stress. But dopamine. Get the reward. Beards are awesome. But this is, I'll move on from this.
I can't stop looking at your beard and it's disturbing.
Infecting people with thoughts is a power that you have. We all have it.
Use it responsibly.
Use it responsibly. Shower thoughts are dangerous. And yeah,
Look at you now.
Yeah, I know it's fine. Look at them. Yeah, no, I don't even know. That's a hard stop on that train of thought. But you know what I'm talking about, right? When we're going into these things, it's time to level it up. It's time to change how things work, and I think it's time to go against the natural flow when we do this, right?
Okay.
And to this, the only thing that I can think of is be Oobleck, my friend.
Oh, like the cornstarch water, Oobleck?
Yeah, this ain't your mama's cornstarch.
Your mama's cornstarch.
If you don't know, Oobleck is a non-Newtonian fluid. It's a fancy way. See, lexicon.
I thought I got scientific.
Right? Yeah, no, I get to. So what that means is it doesn't react as normal things do. It doesn't follow normal states. When you put a goop blop or whatever it is in your head, you're looking over here. Don't look at my head because you know that. When you squeeze it, it becomes hard. When you open your hand again, it reverts back to being a liquid. So it responds with the energy that it's given, right? Yes, you're familiar with this?
Yes, Oobleck. I know what Oobleck is.
Yes. Okay, great.
I'm not thinking about anything else. It's just Oobleck.
And why are we talking about this? Because this
Why are we talking about this?
This is a great way, like you were talking about before, with the cortisone. Too much stress, too much pressure may not turn them into diamonds, right? You need to have that ability to get the feedback from watching the emotional state of your players at the table in real time. This is, or if you're a player to another player when you're creating a good session of RP.
Right.
Still can't look at me. The power. I didn't respect the power. And so when we go on, things like Oobleck tell us because they mirror very quickly. One of my favorite instances of this is like the movie Sicario, which I know you watched.
Yeah.
There's a great scene where they...
One of the few movies I've
watched. One of the few that aren't kids' movies. Yes, there's a great scene in there where it's
Sicario's not a kids' movie?
Oh, man. There's a long... I'm not going to spoil anything because it's a great piece of media. But there's a shot where they travel across borders and they're doing a lot of small things that are slowly ratcheting up the pressure and the tension. And it's very slow and it's very gradual. It is respecting anticipation. It is respecting building a huge dopamine trigger when you feel the weight off your chest and your shoulders. This is what Ooblecks would tell you. As you slowly bring your strength down on it, it will reflect that. It'll become harder and harder.
Yeah.
And you can also respect at the end of that scene when you relax. When you let it become flowable, when you let it become liquid.
It's that.
It's inadvertent, but something that we haven't really talked about is that, I don't know if you remember this, the episode of Buffy where the gentleman came to Sunnyvale and the whole episode or most of the episode was silent.
Yeah.
You deny them the ability to know how to feel because we're not using music to guide their emotional path, right? So the application of giving them things, the application of denying them certain things can create that tension, can create that want to get to the next scene, whether that's kind of a desperation, like I can't handle this anymore. Like this is getting to me.
Yeah.
These are great ways of creating that emotional context, not damage.
Emotional context.
It's really good. Of getting to the player's heartstrings, not just the PC. Right? Because there is a time when you have to play the man, not the cards. If this is poker, play the man, not the ball. If it's football, soccer, right? You have to know your audience because if you can make them resonate, have an emotional resonance.
Emotional resonance.
This is a serious point, but yes, thank you. If you can get that out of the players, then that's automatically going to be reflected in the PCs because they can't help not feel what they are actually feeling.
Yep. No, it's true. It's very true.
Yeah.
Like all that. Well, because all that the elixir of obsession, you can't help it feel those things. The brain involuntarily produces that stuff, so you'll feel it. Whether you want to or not, right?
Yeah, it's kind of out of your control, even though it's 100% in your control. And I think finally, when we're talking about Oobleck is the opposite of what a lot of things are, being non-Newtonian. So if you do record yourself, go back and watch it with a serious analytical eye. Understand what your style is. Understand what your strengths are. Understand what your cadence is, the pace that you move at, and play with those dynamically. Speed them through things. Lengthen out uncomfortable scenarios to make them even more uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Force a split of the party even when they're all together, like when they get captured. Do an interrogation scene where you control the interrogator. They're all in chains, but you automatically just shift them scene to scene because they're all going to sit in that interrogator's chair at some point.
Right.
But you can ask a question to one person and then turn and get another person to answer it. Right? You can move the camera so that they can't prepare to like get into a zone of comfort, put up their defenses.
Right. Like you never know when it's back to their turn.
You never know when I'm going to turn back and look at you and expect you to respond. So you have to be involved. You have to be there in the story and ready to respond to what's going on.
In a movie, it's like one of those interrogation montages.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly. Right. You still can't look at me. So so do these things. Find scenes of inspiration and ask yourself why they were so compelling. And specifically, why are they emotionally compelling? What were the building blocks that they did beforehand to make you want more? Why do you have to click next on Netflix? What was the cliffhanger or the one storyline? If it's a multiple story, if it's only a one storyline thing, what is the thing about what is happening right now that is making you click that button? And how can you bring that to the table?
Right.
It's a lot of kind of the opposite where you broke it down for us before. Now this is about us breaking down the other things that we're doing or what we're seeing so that we can make it better. And once again, you got to Bear Grylls this. You got to adapt. You got to improvise. You got to overcome your own limitations.
You love that guy.
He just works so well for my thoughts. Call me. Yeah, I think that's really kind of a great way and a great point to discuss and kind of ruminate on and ferment and grow something awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, I think we're running out of time. So let's just. I think I'm gonna finish things off. Okay.
Cool.
All these things that we talked about.
Yes.
I think is great. We do those things, and it builds this sort of bond and this pleasure and this sort of it sucks your people at your table into your campaign in the D&D game, right? But that's not what leaves them wanting more. What actually leaves people wanting more is the withdrawal. So when you don't have those feelings anymore. I don't like to compare it to like addiction, like I did, but it is very similar to that, right? Because it feels so good when you're doing all this stuff to experience the campaign, experience your character, other people's characters, that when you stop playing and you go home, there's that sort of empty feeling. Because everyday life doesn't necessarily give you that elixir of obsession.
Absolutely.
Right? That a well-crafted campaign and D&D session does, right? And you miss sort of all that chemical concoction in your brain, and unfortunately, like we talked about, that chemical concoction in your brain, you're very, very vulnerable to it because it's naturally occurring in your brain, and it's designed to work that way. So if you're using all these sort of tricks that we talked about to hack people's brains to really love what's going on,
biohack,
right? Kind of, right? We don't stand a chance. The people at your table won't stand a chance. They will get sort of really not devoted, but like involved in there. And when it's gone, that's when they're like, oh man, next week I can't wait till our next session, right? Because it feels so good. I want that next hit, right? Luckily, it's not so bad as like physical drugs or whatever, where it's like physically you're dependent on it, but it is that desire to want more because I don't have it anymore.
Yes.
Right? So I think that's all you have to do, right? Put all the stuff in there,
right,
and then let people go home, right? Just like all we need to do is give you value in this video, and then you guys will like and subscribe and notify. Right? Yeah. But I really believe that if you guys do this, the people at your table will not be able to get enough of what's going on, what you're putting down. Whether you're a DM or a player, when you get good at this, not if, when you get good at this.
I like that.
Right? It will change your D&D. Right? If you notice, if you look at all the pro D&D players that you watch online on the live plays, they do all this stuff.
Yes.
Whether it's planned out or if it's improvised, they have this stuff in the story and in the characters and everything. So that's why we binge watch these live plays.
Well, it's right? Developed to a level where it doesn't appear forced, right? It doesn't. Yeah. It appears graceful, and they're confident when they do it because they've practiced it so much in their history of storytelling, acting, or whatever their background is. And that's why it's so nice to emulate these things and to analyze these people, because what they're doing shows just how good they are at the basics. Working on the basics, understanding what it is they're doing, and then applying that on the fly so much so that it becomes an involuntary thing. Your brain just does it.
Yeah.
Your brain just gives you those wonderful little happy drugs. That's where we want to get to. We all want to get to. We all want to find the next level. This is a way to get there, and really to make everybody want to get there together.
Absolutely. Anyways, I think that brings us to the end of today's episode. Thank you so much for joining us today. Once more, this has been Caffeine and Cantrips. I'm Sean.
And I'm Byron, with a beard.
Join us next time. Or else.
Ah!